When life throws challenges your way, you don't always have the luxury to pause and prepare. Sometimes you're forced to grow in the middle of chaos. A strong personality isn't something you're born with, it's something you build when everything around you tries to break you. It's in those moments of pain, rejection, failure, and even silence that you begin to discover the unshakable parts of yourself. You don't build strength by pretending to be okay, you build it by showing up, broken, vulnerable, but still willing to move forward. Strength is not loud, it doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers through quiet resilience, through grace in suffering, through choosing to rise even when you don't have a reason left. The world will try to define you, put you in boxes, label you, but your personality, the real you, is built when you stop fitting in and start standing tall in your truth. Embrace your flaws and own your story. It sounds simple, but in a world obsessed with perfection, this is one of the hardest things to do. From a very young age, we are taught what beauty looks like, what success sounds like, what strength is supposed to feel like. And in that process, we are also taught silently, but constantly, that our flaws are something to be ashamed of. We learn to hide our scars, mask our emotions, and rewrite our stories just to fit into someone else's version of worthiness. But true strength and a powerful personality do not come from what you hide, they come from what you have the courage to reveal. There is a kind of freedom that comes with embracing who you truly are, flaws and all. Not just the parts that win praise, but the ones that have been through pain, that carry disappointment, that hold regret, because those are the parts that shape you. They are not signs of weakness. They are proof that you survived, that you endured, and that you grew. When you own your story, you take the narrative away from the world and put it back in your hands. You stop waiting for someone else to tell you that you're good enough, strong enough, brave enough, because deep inside, you already know that you are. It's easy to post perfect pictures and pretend that life is smooth, but what takes real courage is to show up as you are. The moments when you felt left out, when your voice was not heard, when your value was questioned, those are not failures. They are chapters of your story, and each one holds a lesson that shapes the person you are becoming. Owning your story means refusing to be defined by someone else's opinion or by the mistakes you made in a version of yourself you've outgrown. It's also about looking in the mirror and choosing to be kind to yourself. There will always be things you wish you could change. Maybe it's the way you look, the way you react, the way you handled something in the past. But growth doesn't happen by rejecting yourself. It happens when you accept yourself. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy. You don't have to have it all figured out to be proud of how far you've come. That acceptance is where confidence begins, the quiet kind that doesn't scream for attention, but radiates from within because it's rooted in truth. When you embrace your flaws, you also open the door to empathy. You begin to understand others better because you've sat with your own pain, you've wrestled with your own insecurities, you've had nights where nothing made sense and mornings where you still chose to try again. That kind of understanding builds depth in your personality. It makes you someone who doesn't just shine, but someone who sees the light in others even when they can't see it in themselves. Your story might have dark chapters. It might have moments of silence, of heartbreak, of mistakes you wish you could erase, but even those chapters matter. They are not the end, they are the turning points. They are the places where you broke open just enough to let the light in. And when you carry that story with pride instead of shame, you give others permission to do the same. You show them that it's okay to be real, to be raw, to be unfinished, because being real is where true connection begins. You weren't meant to blend in or to shrink yourself just to be accepted. Your voice, your experience, your journey, they matter. And the moment you stop apologizing for who you are is the moment your real personality begins to shine. Not the one shaped by expectations, but the one carved through honesty, struggle, and strength. When you stop covering your flaws and start owning your truth, you don't just build a personality, you build presence. A presence that speaks even when you are silent. A presence that inspires without having to perform. a presence that reminds others that they, too, can rise just as they are. Build emotional resilience through acceptance, because life isn't about avoiding pain. It's about learning how to carry it without letting it crush you. We are not taught how to deal with emotional wounds. We are told to be strong, to be positive, to move on quickly, but nobody tells us what to do when you're breaking inside and the world just keeps moving. Emotional resilience isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about allowing yourself to feel everything, the sadness, the fear, the anger, the confusion, and still making the decision to keep going. There's this misconception that strong people don't cry, that they don't break down, that they always bounce back. But the truth is, strong people do cry. They do break. They just don't let those moments define them. They use those moments to understand themselves better, to rebuild in a way that's even stronger than before. And that rebuilding begins with acceptance, not fighting what is, not wishing it were different, but meeting reality as it is, with open eyes and an open heart. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up or settling. It means recognizing that some things are out of your control. People will disappoint you, plans will fall apart, life will not always be fair. But instead of resisting that truth and exhausting yourself in the process, emotional resilience comes from saying, "This is where I am, this is what I'm feeling, and this is what I will do with it." You give yourself permission to sit with your emotions without letting them consume you. You give yourself grace, and in that grace, you begin to build a different kind of strength, the kind that's rooted in clarity, not chaos. There will be times when you feel like everything is slipping away, times when you lose people, opportunities, dreams. In those moments, resilience doesn't look like a grand comeback. Sometimes it just looks like getting out of bed. It looks like taking a breath when your chest is heavy. It looks like showing up to your life even when you feel like you're only half there. Emotional resilience is built in those quiet moments of endurance, in the spaces where nobody is watching, but you choose to rise anyway. It's also about the way you speak to yourself in hard times. You cannot control every situation, but you can control the way you respond to yourself. Are you your own enemy, constantly criticizing and blaming? Or are you your own ally, reminding yourself that it's okay to struggle, that healing is messy, and that growth isn't linear? The way you talk to yourself in pain will either break you or build you. And when you learn to offer yourself compassion, you create space for resilience to grow. Resilience doesn't mean being unaffected. It means feeling everything and still choosing to move forward. It's the ability to keep your heart open, even after it's been bruised. It's the strength to trust again after being let down. It's the courage to hope even when you've been disappointed. That kind of strength is not loud. It doesn't always look like bravery. Sometimes it's silent, slow, uncertain, but it's powerful because it's real. And emotional resilience is not something you wake up with one day. It's built over time. It's built every time you face something you thought would break you and somehow you're still standing. It's built in every moment you chose to stay instead of running away. Every time you allowed yourself to feel pain instead of numbing it. Every time you gave yourself time instead of rushing to fix everything. With each of those moments, you were building a foundation, a quiet, steady resilience that nothing outside of you can take away. When you accept your emotions instead of resisting them, you stop fighting yourself. You begin to flow with life instead of being pulled under by it. You start to see pain not as punishment, but as part of the process. You learn that wounds can coexist with strength, and that healing is not about erasing what hurt you, it's about integrating it into your story with grace. You begin to understand that emotions are not weaknesses, they are messengers. And when you stop running from them, you begin to understand yourself more deeply than ever before. Set boundaries without guilt because your peace is not up for negotiation. From a very young age, many of us are taught to be agreeable, to please others, to avoid conflict at all costs. We are told to be kind, to be helpful, to always say yes even when every part of us is screaming no. And in that process, we slowly start to forget where we end and where others begin. We start giving so much of ourselves to meet others' expectations that we lose sight of what we actually need, want, or deserve. But building a strong personality requires drawing a line not out of anger or rebellion, but out of self-respect. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are doors that allow the right people in while keeping your energy, time, and heart protected. They are the language of self-worth. They say, I matter too. When you learn to say no without explaining, when you learn to step away from what drains you, when you stop allowing others to overstep just to avoid discomfort, you start reclaiming your power. And in that process, you begin to show others how to treat you not through demands or confrontation, but through the quiet, consistent message of your actions. Setting boundaries often comes with discomfort. People will question you. They might accuse you of being distant, selfish, or unkind. But it's not your job to make others comfortable at the cost of your own well-being. You're not here to constantly pour from an empty cup. You're not here to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's convenience. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to say, this doesn't work for me, even if it once did. Growth means change, and sometimes that change means disappointing others to be true to yourself. It's also important to understand that boundaries are not just about saying no to others, they are also about saying yes to yourself. Yes to time alone, yes to healing, yes to emotional safety, yes to relationships that nourish instead of deplete, yes to your own voice, your own values, your own limits. When you set boundaries, you create space for what actually aligns with who you are becoming. And in doing that, you don't just protect your peace, you elevate your life. You don't need to justify why something feels wrong. You don't need to apologize for wanting distance. You don't have to over-explain why you don't answer every call, attend every gathering, or entertain every conversation. Your energy is sacred. Your time is valuable. Your emotions are real. And when you finally accept that, you stop abandoning yourself for the sake of acceptance. You begin to show up in your life with more clarity, more focus, and more authenticity. Boundaries also reflect emotional maturity. They say you're aware of your triggers, you're responsible for your healing, and you're committed to maintaining the kind of environment that supports your growth. They aren't harsh, they are healthy. And the people who genuinely care about you won't be offended by your boundaries. They will honor them because they want you to be well. But the people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will resist. And that's okay, let them, because the moment you stop bending for approval is the moment you start standing for something greater, your truth. It takes courage to set boundaries in relationships that you love. Sometimes it's family. Sometimes it's friends you've known forever. But no relationship is worth losing yourself for. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both yourself and others is to say, this dynamic no longer supports the person I'm working to become. That doesn't mean you love them less. It means you're loving yourself enough to stop repeating patterns that are no longer healthy. Boundaries are also not one-time decisions. They are a daily practice. Sometimes you'll question yourself. Sometimes you'll feel guilty, but guilt doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you're doing something new, and new things feel uncomfortable at first. The guilt will pass, but the strength you build by choosing yourself will remain. Over time, you'll find that the more you honor your own limits, the more peace you create. And in that peace, your true self has room to grow, breathe, and shine without fear of being overshadowed by expectations that never belonged to you in the first place. Practice self-reflection and intentional growth, because without awareness, there is no direction, and without direction, there is no transformation. We often move through life on autopilot, reacting to situations, repeating patterns, and chasing goals without ever pausing to ask ourselves why. Self-reflection is not a luxury. It's a necessity if you want to build a strong personality that's not just shaped by circumstances, but guided by purpose. It requires you to be still, to look inward, and to ask difficult questions that most people spend their lives avoiding. Growth begins the moment you decide to stop blaming the world and start understanding your own behavior. Why do certain things trigger you? Why do you hold on to resentment? Why do you sabotage your own progress? These aren't questions you ask to judge yourself, they're questions you ask to free yourself. Because the truth is, you can't change what you don't acknowledge, and the longer you avoid yourself, the longer you delay your evolution. Self-reflection is what brings clarity to the chaos. It helps you see the patterns that no longer serve you, the beliefs that limit you, and the choices that keep you stuck. It's not always easy. Looking at yourself honestly can be painful. You might uncover truths that make you uncomfortable, mistakes you made, ways you hurt others, parts of yourself that you've tried to hide. But true strength is not in perfection. It's in the willingness to face your imperfections with compassion and the courage to grow beyond them. Every time you choose self-awareness over self-denial, you take a step toward becoming someone more grounded, more whole, and more intentional. Intentional growth means you're not just drifting through life waiting for change to happen. It means you are actively shaping your thoughts, actions, and mindset in a way that aligns with who you want to become. It's about setting intentions, not just goals. A goal is something you want to achieve. An intention is about who you want to be. When you reflect on your choices with honesty, you begin to understand what drives you, and that understanding helps you shift from reacting to creating. You begin to question the roles you've played. Were you always the fixer in every relationship? The one who stayed silent to keep peace? The one who pushed through everything without asking for help? Through reflection, you realize that some of these roles were never yours to carry. They were survival tactics, not identity. And when you begin to release what's no longer yours, you make space for who you truly are underneath all the conditioning. Intentional growth also means being honest about your environment. Are the people around you encouraging your growth or feeding your fears? Are your habits building your future or keeping you tied to your past? It's not about blaming others. It's about choosing what you allow into your space. Because growth doesn't happen in clutter. It happens in clarity. And you can only create clarity when you are willing to pause, assess, and redirect. Self-reflection requires solitude, but not isolation. It's about creating space in your day, even if it's just a few minutes to tune into your thoughts, your emotions, your progress. Maybe it's through journaling, or taking walks without distraction, or simply sitting in silence and asking yourself, what am I feeling right now and why? These small acts of checking in with yourself begin to shift everything. They help you course correct before you spiral. They help you celebrate small wins instead of constantly chasing what's next. They help you move through life with intention instead of impulse. Growth is not a straight line. Some days you'll feel like you've made progress, and other days you'll feel like you've taken 10 steps back. But that's the beauty of intentional growth. It's not about perfection. It's about consistency. Every time you pause to reflect, every time you make a conscious decision, every time you choose healing over hiding, you're moving forward. And over time, those small steps create massive shifts. The strongest personalities aren't built by accident. They are built through awareness, through choice, through a deep commitment to never stop learning and never stop evolving. And that commitment begins with the courage to look within not just once, but again and again, until growth becomes your way of living, not just your goal. Speak your truth with confidence and kindness, because silence is not always strength, and speaking up is not always confrontation. There comes a time when you have to stop hiding behind politeness and start standing in your truth. Your voice matters, your thoughts matter, your perspective has weight, and when you suppress what you truly feel to avoid discomfort or rejection, you slowly start disconnecting from yourself. Speaking your truth doesn't mean being loud, aggressive, or defensive. It means being honest, being clear, and being brave enough to say what needs to be said, even if your voice shakes while saying it. Many people are afraid of their own voice, not because they don't know what they want to say, but because they've been taught that their voice is too much, too emotional, too complicated. They've been told that it's easier to stay quiet, easier to agree, easier to avoid conflict by pretending everything is okay. But over time, that silence starts to eat away at your sense of self. You begin to doubt your worth, not because you have no value, but because you've stopped expressing what's true to you, and no one can honor a voice they never hear. Confidence doesn't always come naturally. Sometimes it has to be built one word at a time. You learn to speak up when it feels safer to stay quiet. You learn to express your needs without apology. You learn to communicate without aggression, but with strength. And the more you practice, the stronger that voice becomes, not because the world suddenly changes, but because you stop relying on approval to validate what you know to be true. Speaking your truth is not about winning arguments or proving points. It's about living in alignment with your values. It's about honoring your emotions, your experiences, and your boundaries, and communicating them in a way that allows others to understand you. It's about choosing clarity over confusion, courage over comfort, truth over silence. When you do this with kindness, you build trust. You create space for real connection, not based on performance or pleasing, but based on honesty and mutual respect. There will be moments when your truth isn't accepted, when people misunderstand you, or when your honesty makes others uncomfortable. That doesn't mean you were wrong to speak. Not everyone will be ready to hear what you have to say. But that doesn't make your voice any less valid. The goal isn't to control how others respond. The goal is to live in a way that's true to who you are. You can't build a strong personality on a foundation of silence. You can't grow into your fullest self while hiding the parts of you that are real. Kindness is a powerful force when paired with truth. When you speak from a place of understanding, compassion, and self-respect, your words carry weight. They don't wound, they awaken. They don't attack, they clarify. They don't push people away, they invite the right ones closer. Speaking your truth with kindness doesn't mean sugarcoating your feelings. It means expressing them with the intention to be heard, not to hurt. And in doing so, you create a space where others also feel safe to speak their truth. This kind of communication takes practice. It requires emotional maturity, patience, and the ability to pause before reacting. You begin to ask yourself not just what do I want to say, but also how can I say it in a way that honors both myself and the person I'm speaking to. That balance is where power lives, not in silence, not in shouting, but in clear, calm, honest expression. That's how leaders communicate. That's how real change begins not just in the world, but within yourself. You also start to learn that your truth may evolve. What you believe today may change as you grow, and that's okay. Speaking your truth doesn't mean being rigid. It means being authentic in the present moment. It means having the humility to say, "This is where I am now," and the courage to adjust when you learn something new. Truth isn't a destination, it's a reflection of your journey. And the more you walk in alignment with it, the more confident you become not just in your words, but in your presence. Confidence and kindness are not opposite. You don't have to choose between being firm and being gentle. You can be both. You can speak up without being harsh. You can disagree without being disrespectful. You can honor your voice while still holding space for someone else's. That balance is not weakness, it's strength in its most grounded form. It's how powerful personalities are built through authenticity, not aggression, through courage, not control. And it begins the moment you stop hiding what you feel and start expressing it with clarity, integrity, and compassion. Surround yourself with purpose, driven people, because the environment you choose has the power to either build you or break you. You might be strong, focused, and full of ambition, but if you are constantly surrounded by negativity, comparison, drama, or indifference, that energy will slowly start to seep into your mindset. It's easy to underestimate the impact of the people around you until you realize how much of your motivation, self, worth, and growth is influenced by the conversations you hear, the values you absorb, and the habits you witness every day. Being intentional about your circle is not about judgment or feeling superior to others. It's about recognizing that your energy is sacred and that your dreams deserve to be protected. You cannot afford to keep company that dismisses your progress, minimizes your pain, or discourages your growth. Purpose-driven people don't just cheer for you, they challenge you, inspire you, and remind you of who you are when you forget. They help you rise, not because they want something from you, but because they believe in something bigger than themselves. You begin to grow differently when the people around you are also growing. When you're surrounded by individuals who are chasing their goals, who are working on healing, who are speaking with intention and acting with clarity, something within you wakes up. You start to reflect their energy. You start to believe that it's possible. You start to push yourself not out of pressure, but out of inspiration. And that kind of environment doesn't just support your personality, it shapes it. Sometimes, in order to find that kind of circle, you have to let go of relationships that no longer align. That can be difficult, especially when you care deeply. But you have to ask yourself, is this connection helping me become who I'm meant to be, or is it keeping me tied to who I used to be? It's not about perfection. No one is perfect, but there's a difference between people who are stagnant by choice and people who are growing through effort. The people you surround yourself with should reflect the direction you want to go, not the comfort zone you're trying to leave behind. Purpose-driven people bring a different kind of presence. They speak about ideas, not gossip. They uplift, they don't compete. They listen with empathy, not with judgment. They encourage accountability without shame. Being around people like that doesn't mean life becomes easier. It means you become more equipped to face it. You develop a stronger mindset, a deeper sense of self, and a clearer vision for your future. You begin to raise your standards not just in relationships, but in the way you show up for yourself. And it's not just about finding those people. It's also about becoming one of them. When you live with purpose, when you communicate with authenticity, when you support others without envy, you naturally attract people who do the same. You don't need to chase validation or prove your worth. Your energy starts to speak for itself. The way you carry yourself, the way you talk about your goals, the way you treat others, all of that signals who you are and what you value. Purpose-driven people recognize that and gravitate toward it. There will be moments when you feel alone on your journey, especially when you begin to outgrow old environments. That loneliness is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of transition. Growth often requires solitude before it brings alignment. But that period of being in between, of no longer fitting in where you used to belong, but not yet finding your new tribe, is where your character is built. It's where you learn to validate yourself, to motivate yourself, and to hold your own vision even when no one else can see it yet. And when you do find your people, the ones who see your heart, respect your values, and push you to be better, hold onto them. Nurture those relationships, celebrate their wins, support their healing. Grow together, because life is not meant to be lived in isolation, and strength is not built in echo chambers. A strong personality is not just the product of inner work, it's also a reflection of the company you keep, the standards you uphold, and the energy you allow into your space.